So week 9 we saw some wide receivers break out. And this is wide receivers on waivers. I'm going to look to add going into week 10. And the first guy's Curtis Samuel. He was on the list last week, but he's making the list here again. What a monster game Samuel had for the Carolina Panthers in a tough loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. So Samuel, what a game he had. Once again, 3 rushes. He also had 13 yards, 9 targets, 9 catches, 105 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Samuel, he's ahead of DJ Moore, it looks like, in the pecking order on many key third downs and drives. Samuel, he was the go-to guy, it looked like. Robbie Anderson had a great game also, but Samuel, the best receiver of the day for the Panthers. And now with Christian McCaffrey back in the lineup, even though he got banged up later on in the game, Samuel did his thing. So Samuel, he's still available in 71% of fantasy leagues. I said go pick him up last week on the same video for waivers week 9, and this week you better go pick him up. So Curtis Samuel will be the first guy to add. The second guy's a guy on a bye week, Jaylen Rhaegar of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's going to have a role right away, which we saw him have last week versus the Dallas Cowboys, where he had a nice game, Rhaegar, in his return, with 3 catches, 16 yards, and a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. But Rhaegar, he still had 7 targets. He also had a rushing attempt also. The Eagles liked him. They drafted him in the first round. They knew they needed receiver help. The only guy over there consistent right now is Fulgham. Alshon Jeffrey, I'm not counting on him coming back at all. Desean Jackson, we know he's out for the fantasy football season, at least maybe even the regular season, with the fractured ankle. So Rhaegar, he's going to play. He's going to get reps. And this week, in week 10 versus the Giants, I like his matchup. So Rhaegar, he's out there in 75% of fantasy leagues. Go out there and pick him. The next guy is Lazard, another guy coming back off an injury for the Green Bay Packers. He didn't play versus the Niners in week 9, but I think week 10 he's going to show up and play versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is Lazard. He looked good before he got hurt in week 3, where he had 28 fantasy points, a career game, 6 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. And it looked like Rodgers and Lazard, they were getting it going. It looked like they found their number 2 receiver. And then the core muscle injury costed him now 6 weeks for Lazard. But I think he's going to come back versus Jacksonville here in week 10. And he's available in 72% of fantasy leagues. And like I say, if you could go get someone who's going to have a role in a good offense, you go get that guy. And that's what I say, you go with Lazard. The next guy is another guy who's got a decent role in a very good offense, is David Moore. And we saw him again here in week 9 with a great game, 6 targets, 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. He caught a 50-yard touchdown on an alley-oop sky ball from Russell Wilson in the end zone. So Seattle, you know they love throwing the ball. It was a tough loss for them versus the Bills, and they had to throw a lot and still lost 44-34. But David Moore now, the last 3 weeks, he's putting up solid numbers in PPR games. Week 7, he had 3 catches for 54 yards. Week 8 versus San Francisco, 3 catches, 18 yards, and 2 rushes, 28 yards. And then this week, 17-10. With the 4 for 71 and a touchdown. So Moore, he's the 3rd receiver here. He's locked in. Josh Gordon, I don't think he's coming back this season or getting reinstated. So Moore, he's going to have a role. And as a 3rd receiver in an offense like Seattle, he's a guy I'm going to try to get. The next guy's KJ Hamler, the speedy rookie of the Denver Broncos. He had a good game once again this week versus a weak Atlanta Falcon team. Is Hamler. Him and Locke have a good rapport, and Hamler now the last few weeks since he came back from an injury as well, he's looked good. He had today 15 fantasy points, 6 catches for 75 yards, and a rush for 15 yards on 10 targets. This guy has burst away speed, he's got some decent hands, and he's pretty good for a rookie. And now he's got the Vegas Raiders coming up, and I think he could have a decent game also. He's available is KJ Hamler in 88% of fantasy leagues, so he's out there virtually everywhere if you need a good receiver with a good matchup coming up. So he's a guy I recommend as well. And the final guy is Alameda Zaccharidis, however you pronounce his name, I know, of the Atlanta Falcons. What a game he had today. But he filled in for Ridley. That's why he went off. We thought it was Gage, but Zacchaeus again, the second time this year he's had a big game. He had 4 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown for 21 fantasy points. This guy's available in 100% of leagues. But I only recommend you to go pick him up for Ridley. And who knows when Ridley will come back. They expect him coming back next week, but I don't know. He was questionable all week with the foot and he barely practiced. But that's a few wide receivers I'm looking to target on the waiver wire this week, heading into week 10.